Good afternoon, everyone, with the technical update of Commvault Platform Release 2023. My name is Matty van Hies. I'm a Senior Technical Consultant at DMP for 15 years this month. I will give the technical presentation, and my sidekick for today is Patrick Stouten, team lead of the engineering team, who will also make sure he follows the chat function. It's quite a big program. We have 1 hour that's fully packed with the slides. So if there's any questions, please ask them via the chat. We will try to answer them or discuss them at the end of the presentation. But if there's not any time left, we will pick them off offline and come back to you with the answers or to discuss it. So let's start with the presentation. On the agenda for today, we have platform releases and release support. Some important breaking changes in this platform release. Security topics, that's the biggest slide deck for this afternoon. So Microsoft application updates and data intelligence products, and a brief summary, a bullet point summary of other updates. Also, like all the other feature release updates, it's quite a big one. It's impossible to discuss all the new features in this release. But I put them in the slide decks at the end. The presentation will be delivered to you as well, so you can also always look them up in a later stage in your own time. So platform releases and support. This is CPR Commvault Platform Release 2023. aka Future Release 11.30. That's still the internal name used by Commvault. But in the open, it's now called Commvault Platform Release. It's in technical preview still. It will go GA next week, February 15th. And this is currently an overview of the releases which are available since, let's say, May 2019. Keep in mind that not all of them are on the support anymore. I marked the green ones, so you can see that SURSpec 16, which still is a long-term support release for 5 years. Commvault changed that in Future Release 11.24, sorry. So from 24, only the external support releases are for 3 years. So make sure that you're on one of those future releases to be on a supported level. So not one of them in between like SURSpec 18 or Future Release 11.19, because there will not be any support by Commvault for those releases. So make sure that you check your environment, and if you need to update to another release, do that to keep support. So we have some important breaking changes in this release. For disaster recovery backups, administrator shares are no longer to be configured as an export location for DR backups. Commvault does that because of the security vulnerability. Commvault says, okay, hidden shares, administrator shares shouldn't be exposed and used by any application.
What shares are involved here? The DNC dollar or also the standard NetApp share?
I was coming to that. The difference here is that they say administrator shares. We have discussed this with Commvault because we have in our test environment, we have upgraded to CPR 2023. And it seems that also the regular hidden shares are not allowed anymore and could be an issue. So we have discussed this already with the Commvault development team. They are working on this currently, and they are fixing some stuff in the backend. I don't have any details yet, because we also believe that administrator shares, that is something we can understand. So like the C dollar, the D dollar for example, for the Windows operating system, that could be security vulnerability. But if you use the regular hidden shares, because not Normally, you don't want to expose all the shares into your internal network, so they're browsable. That should still be something what could be used for example, disaster recovery backups. So this is already discussed with Commvault development. They are working on a fix for this. Details for that, what is going to be allowed and what is going to be not allowed, or how that's going to work with additional settings, or if it's just a new maintenance release update. Those details are not available yet, but we will make sure that we communicate them to you as soon as we have an update from them. It's not only for disaster recovery backups, it also counts for disk library mount paths. So if you have disk library using network shares as mount paths, previously you could also configure the C dollars, D dollars as a mount path. The same here, administrator shares are no longer allowed, and also this is the same discussion with Commvault development. So as soon as we have an update, we will share that with you. But just to keep you informed, currently it's still in tech preview, so it's not advisable to upgrade your environment yet to the CPR 2023. And this is also one of the reasons why you shouldn't upgrade yet, because we see that a lot of customers have, for example, the hidden dollar share configured for the disaster recovery export backup location, and we don't want that to be stopped or having issues with that. So something to keep in mind. Regarding log files, it's not really a breaking change, but if you need to do some troubleshooting, Commvault uses Command Center more and more for new features. Java console is of course still there for stuff which is not a Command Center yet. Previously that was called the admin console. With this future release, the log name has been changed, and also the entries within the log files have been changed from admin console to Command Center. So if you need to do any troubleshooting, you need to use the new log files now. So that is some breaking changes, and we will keep you informed about those. Next topic, security, which is the biggest topic for this hour. So SIEM connector is on the agenda to connect to your logging systems. Analyze backup content for threats. 2 topics there: file data analysis and threat analysis. Multi-person authentication, and I put it between the brackets for companies, because multi-person authentication is already there for a longer time. Business authorization workflows, we will come to that in a moment. But that is now also available in multi-tenant environments. So for tenant admins, which need to approve certain actions within your part of a com cell, within your visual structure, that needs to be approved. And if you, for example, you want to delete a plan or a storage pool, we'll come to the details in a moment. And compliance lock and warm storage lock, some 2 new names, but it was already existing technical implementations, but now they changed the names, and there's some technical changes there as well. So just one slide. SIEM integration for alerts, audit, and events. Also there for a period of time, but Commvault wants to mention this because they're really working on getting the integration with the platforms for event management and security information more and more. So Commvault calls that the SIEM connector, and that basically makes sure that you can upload your logging to SID logs. You can use plugins, APIs, webhooks. That is the latest one which is integrated to connect to your environment. You see that organizational personas like security operations, IT operators, etc., they don't really work with Commvault. People who need to monitor environments or need to monitor certain aspects of your infrastructure, they probably don't know anything about Commvault, but still want to have notification if there's any alert, so they can warn the correct people. They probably used to use Splunk or ServiceNow, So what you can do within your Commvault environment is that you can configure those kind of connectors like webhooks or APIs to put that information, the security information and event management into the systems those persons are used to work with. So that integration is also Commvault thinks that it's really important to make sure that your environment is monitored as it should. This is a new topic, analyze backup content for threats. Like I said, there's two things there, file data analysis, which can be used to analyze files to identify if any files are been usually unchanged. It could be encryption, corruption, anything what could be used to to do something with files like anomalies. And there's the threat analysis, which can be used to backup content scanning for malware using an antivirus engine. Those two topics are still early adapter. That means Commvault works with a select number of customers to discuss this new feature, to deploy it, etc. So it's not that it is not available in future release. It's only that we need to contact Commvault for this to get that package available within your Commvault environment. So we can help you with this if you're interested. So we can contact Commvault, the early adapter team, to integrate this within your environment. The early adapter phase is normally an X period of time when Commvault says, okay, now we have done the full testing, etc. It can be used, and then the early adapter is going to be released, and it's going to be a full version. But it is already available. We just need to contact Commvault for this. I want to mention it still here because I think it has quite a good contribution to Commvault with data management. So why does Commvault do this? I think this is important. This is a slide from Sophos. The analyze backup content for threats. What you see is that the cyber threats take a dwell time, so to speak. So 20 to 15 days. That seems to be the average in the market, and that is because the ransomware attackers, for example, they have different phases to infiltrate within your environment. The first one is the initial access, which can be done through multiple ways, email, phishing, credentials, malware, etc. Then they actually take some time to infiltrate in your environment, lateral movement, privilege escalation. They just gather all the information, and then they impact the target. So then they really start destroying backups, encrypt data, etc. And that total process takes normally about 20 to 50 days time. So it is really important that you make sure that you go back if you're hit to a version which is still secure, which is before the attack really happened. And therefore, Commvault has now the backup content analysis available to also scan your backup content itself for example, malware using an antivirus scan engine. So if you need to go back in time when you're hit, you can be certain that you have a valid version where you restore to. This is also a number in the industry. It seems that 75% of companies infected with ransomware were having an up-to-date endpoint protection running. So still, if you have an up-to-date antivirus engine, for example, or malware scanning, still you can be hit. So the first one, file data analysis. Let's take a little bit deeper look into this one. Early adapter. File data analysis allows users to inspect backup content to identify if there's any files encrypted, corrupted, modified, or whatever. It really gives you a good overview and gives you the possibility to scan files which you see as marked on the file anomaly dashboard, which will be shown in a moment. So you don't need to guess or say, okay, maybe I need to filter that folder, or maybe I need to scan those number of files. The file anomaly dashboard really gives you a complete overview of files which could be having an anomaly, and you can take immediate action on those files. So how does that look? The unusual file activity dashboard is available in Command Center. It's not a Java QE thing. It's only in the Command Center available on your environment by default. So on the dashboard itself, you can see, for example, a server name. You can see, okay, there's a file anomaly type, there's a file activity discovered, the detection time, and how many files on this system have been counted as an anomaly. And then there's an action button beneath the line where you can say, okay, I want to analyze file data, or you want to get the details, etc. So if you choose the analyze file data, what it will do is you need to configure a time window where you want to do the scanning for that file. So let's say that you want to scan the last month and the different versions of this file. You can define that time window here. It will use an index server, which needs to be available in your environment. So you can set it up as you do normal index server. It's not using the index server of the media agent. It's so-called the V2 indexing server. So you need to have a specific machine for that. Could be a virtual machine, doesn't need to be a hardware machine with some certain specs, which you can find in books online, or we can help you with that. And then that can be used as the index server. So when you start the analysis, it will start the data curation process that will be seen as a job in the job controller. It can take some time depending on the amount of data. And if there's any suspicious files are detected on the dashboard, it will update the dashboard. So how does it work? What does it use to scan those files? It's using two different methods. One is the SIM hash algorithm by Google, and it looks for similarities between the two data cells. So, for example, if you have a file which has different versions, so you saved the file on one date and it has been adjusted on another date, that is called, those are then two different versions of the particular file. And it's going to see if there's enough variance between those different files. And the SIM hash looks for a change of more than 10 bits between those versions. Then it will be marked as an anomaly. The file entropy works on a scale from 0 to 8. And if the entropy is flagged by 2, so it increases, for example, from 1 to 3, then it's also flagged as an anomaly. So also here, multiple versions of the file. So it's always the changes for one file in the version level, what it does to see if there's any anomalies or not. Regarding the performance, some information from Commvault. Commvault did some internal testing, and 1 million of infected files took about 2 to 3 hours to process. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of the performance you can get here for the scanning. So if you then have done the scans, or if you want to dive into the server, which has the file activity, on the dashboard itself, you can really see, okay, how many suspicious and safe files are detected. You can also see the timeline to see, okay, when did it start? When did it get to the peak of the anomalies? You will have a list of suspicious files which you can investigate deeper. So if you have any suspicious files, in this example, we have the file machine learning.docx, you can see it has two different versions, the two different dates here. And you can see that the second one, which is created, the last one, is the suspicious file. You can also see the job ID where that file is being backed up with. So we have seen all this. We can perform some actions, the same as I showed to you before with the three dots. You can select that one and you can select the actions, and you can dive into that file. It shows you a preview of the contents of that file, which is suspicious. So here you can actually see it should be a docx, but that file is really corrupted. You can't read it. Also, you can see the reason why it is suspicious. So it could have significant changes, or the entropy is very high. And then at the bottom, you can mark the file safe or mark it as corrupt. If you're really confident that it's still the file is readable, it shows you the correct content here. It might be not a file marked. It should be marked as an anomaly. So when you want to mark it as corrupt, you need to confirm it. And when you then do the recoveries, the file which will be restored is the one which is not suspicious. So if you have marked a file as corrupt, so let's say the bottom one here, then if you perform a restore for the particular file, this file will not be restored. It will not even be visible because it's going to be masked by the index that it is corrupt. So by default, then it will restore the non-corrupted file. So it will make sure that always a safe file is being restored. The second one is the threat analysis, which is using the content malware scanning on your backup data. So like said before, it makes sure that your backup data is not infected. So when you need to perform a restore, when you, for example, you're hit by a ransomware attack, you're sure that you go back into a safe time for that data which you want to restore. So how does the scan work? A little bit more detail that's not on the slide. You need to create a threat analysis plan, and you need to install the threat analysis package on the machine, which you define as an index server, as well previous as the file analytics. And that engine then will be used to scan the backup data. It's a built-in antivirus engine, a part of the threat analysis package. And antivirus definitions are updated prior to the scanning operations within a 24-hour window. We have an open question to Commvault development about this, because we want to know if we can update the antivirus engine faster than the 24 hours. What you see with ransomware attacks, or if you have any malware stuff, is that the vendors of the antivirus engines release a very quick update to make sure that the malware is discovered. So we also want to know if we can force the update of the antivirus definitions. No update yet from Commvault, but also that we will inform you about as soon as we have an answer here. What basically is happening is that the files which you define to be scanned are being restored out of place on the server itself, the threat analysis server. The files are indexed and then scanned through the built-in antivirus engine. If that is done, they will be removed from the cache, so they will not be left on the cache. So it's just a temporary location. And the same as with the file analysis, if there's any malware detected, it will be flagged within the index. So it will also not be visible for a resource. And they will be visible on the unusual file activity dashboard. We'll show that in a moment. And they're automatically quarantined, so hidden from the recovery. That is done by masking them from the index. So the same unusual file activity dashboard, but a different tab. The threat analysis tab is here. Same, you can see the machine name here. What type of anomaly is detected? In this case, threat analysis, the time, and the file count. Same kind of dashboard here, which shows you the number of threats. So you can see the threat name here as well on the page. Also here you can see the timeline and estimate. Okay, the peak is here, so something happened on this this date in midnight. There seems to be something going on with my system. In the file information, you can see what files and also the threat name which is being discovered, the backup job ID where that file is being backed up with. And because they are marked within the index, you can, on the top, recover files, or the restore path can be used to restore a, let's say, a legal version of the file, which is not corrupted. Those are the file and threat analysis. Now we go to the protect from data destruction exfiltration. So that is the so-called 4 I's principle. There are multiple ways an attacker can infiltrate within your environment. That could be, for example, the privilege escalation, phishing, etc. So there are multiple ways an attacker can get access to your environment, and using the multi-person authentication can be used to overcome a few of those things. So, and that is, for example, for the privilege escalation. So if a user gains access to your environment, what can be done, for example, is that when that user logs into the command center and multi-person authentication is not enabled, they can start deleting backups. They can start restoring data to steal the data from you. But also ransomware can start encrypting or deleting file or exfiltrating your environment immediately. So with the multi-person authorization, and not only for companies, it is already there. For companies is new in this future release, and the compliance log and warm storage can help you with here. So the first one, the MPA controls. aka business logic authorization workflows. What basically is done here is that when an action is being performed by a person, for example, deleting storage, basically what happens in the background is that also events are being created by Commvault with XMLs, and those XMLs are being scanned for certain codes which will be intercepted. So if then a certain event code is happening, then it will trigger that the business authorization workflow must be enabled before the real action is actually going to take place. And that helps you that a ransomware attack or an escalation of a user is not able to start deleting data on its own. And that is not only for attackers, but also to overcome mistakes. It could be that a tenant admin thinks, okay, I've got all this data. We have confirmed that this storage policy copy can be deleted. And that could be a mistake, because if you start deleting that copy, your data is gone. So in those kind of scenarios, you want to double check if it's really allowed to delete that storage policy copy. And that is done through those authorization workflows. Also known as multi-party authorization, dual authorization, 4 I's authorization, etc. So we see that not only in Commvault, also in other platforms or applications. You see those kind of things. These are the workflows which are currently available, which can be used to authorize requests. You can see it's also for restores. You can define a client
computer group for which resource cannot just take place. It needs to be confirmed by a person, a second person, to be able to restore certain data, modify active job authorization, sub-client properties, client properties, all modification. But the most important what we see is all those delete actions. Delete jobs, delete clients, backup sets, companies, etc. Because those, if you do one of those things, your data is destroyed, your data is gone. So for those kind of delete actions, you really want to have a 4i authorization. So as already described a little bit, when a person wants to delete backups or restore data, that workflow intercepts that request is based on the XMLs which are being created in the backend. Then an email is sent to the approver group, and that person must authorize, so accept or deny that action. And depending on the click of that second person, it will be approved or denied. So if it's denied, that action will not take place. So data is still there. For the company integration now, what will happen is by default, the tenant admin group of a company in a multi-tenant environment, those are the persons which need to approve the actions. For the customers which are part of our DMaaS platform, this is on the roadmap because this is still tech preview. We haven't updated, of course, our own environments yet, but it is on the roadmap to implement this feature also on our DMaaS environments. Then we have the compliance lock and the warm storage. Two new names. Compliance lock was the warm copy before, and the warm storage lock is the real immutable variant, which is taking place on your hardware backend. So Commvault implemented this in steps. Before it was a workflow which needs to be run manually, which was not really complex, but it was quite a hassle to get it configured. And it's now just available in the command center through some toggles. So Commvault really started, implemented that and expanded that in the newer feature releases. So compliance lock is the previous warm copy. That was only available in the Java console, not in the command center. Now the compliance lock is enabled through the command center. I'm not sure if everybody knows what the compliance lock does, but it makes sure that the retention cannot be reduced on a storage policy copy. So it makes sure that your data will stay there for the retention time configured. Also, you cannot delete any backup jobs or delete any clients which are part of that storage policy copy. So it makes sure that the data will be retained for the configured retention. New here is as well that previously you needed to configure this on the storage policy copy level. Now it is done on the storage level. To be a little bit more specific, on the storage pool level in the command center, which means that all storage policy copies which use that storage pool as destination will automatically have that compliance lock configured. So it's on a different level now. And the warm storage lock goes a little bit further. It really configures your storage level immutability controls. That's supported for on-prem storage targets, but also Azure, AWS, and it really uses the same workflow as there was already before to configure stuff, the warm copy, the compliance lock on the Commvault end, but also it does some stuff at your hardware and your storage box or in the Azure cloud or AWS cloud. So make sure that the thing is really immutable, meaning that if, for example, you have the S3 credentials to access your cloud library, which you have configured, if the immutable is not configured, a person who has those credentials still is able on the hardware level to delete the data, even if you have set the compliance lock at the Commvault level. With your warm storage lock, it really locks it at the hardware level as well. So that means even if you have the credentials to go to your cloud storage, and normally you should be able to delete that data, you can't do that anymore. So you really have an immutability of changes or deletion of your backup data at your hardware box. Also here, this is configured at the storage level. It uses the retention on all storage, on all the backup destinations, which is configured on that storage level. Existing copies will use that retention, and also the storage lock will be enabled on all storage policy copies using that storage policy pool. This is how it looks like. At the bottom here, you have the warm storage lock enable slider and the compliance lock, as well as the retention setting. So not on the copy level anymore, but as you can see here, Commvault 28, it's really on the storage level where you now configure those compliance lock and warm storage policies. If you enable the warm storage lock, you need to double confirm that you want to have it enabled, because that means you really can't delete the data at your storage level. Even not, for example, if you have any NetApp or AWS configured as a library. Also, those administrators, and if you contact NetApp or AWS, even those persons cannot delete your data. It's really stuck. So keep that in mind. Therefore, you need to double confirm it. And if you do the compliance lock only, and you have that configured for a certain retention, and you want to lower the retention, so let's say that you have configured it on the storage level for a month, and you want to reduce it to a 1 day retention period, you get a warning that it can't be reduced because you use the compliance lock. If there is a reason that you still want to have it reduced, there is a procedure for it. You need to contact Commvault support. You need to get authorization by a couple of people within your organization, and then Commvault support can help you creating an authorization code which you need to implement into your database to get this disabled or to get your retention lowered. That's the only way to do it. It only can be done through Commvault support. And of course, if you have support with us, we can help you with that, and we can help you get that done with Commvault support. And warm storage lock, the same. If the retention is set, it's even grayed out, you can't make the change anymore. You cannot reduce your retention. That is the security part. Some quick Microsoft application updates. O365 compliance search update. Exchange already had the compliance search available for Exchange Online. Now with this new release, also compliance search is available for OneDrive and SharePoint. A basic setup next to the requirements for the index server you need to have. It uses the same index server as for the normal indexing. It just needs to have some additional resources because the content indexing disk needs some more disk space, and it needs to process a little bit more work. But within the configuration, it still uses the same index server. And then on the M365 plan, you basically just need to enable content indexing. And previously, this was only enabling it for Exchange, but now it's also used for OneDrive and SharePoint. This one we will skip. It's just a small presentation, but if required, we can show that to you later. Otherwise, we will run out of time. Project Online is now available as a for backup of your Office 365 environment. So you now can backup projects or project web applications through the Office 365 implementation in Command Center. At the SharePoint M365 plan, you now have the availability to backup the Project Online slider. That's basically all what needs to be done, besides having a service account with project license required. Normally, SharePoint uses the Azure application to backup SharePoint sites. That is still the case. So if you don't backup any project-related sites, you don't need to have a service account. But if you want to have project backups enabled as well, you need to have that service account available and configured within your application. Then when you configure the sites for backup in the Office 365 plan, and then you can actually see the site type, which is either a regular SharePoint site, but if it's a Project Online site, you can actually see it here as well. Restores can be done in place to the original location and out of place. If it's an out of place restore, the destination must be a project web application site, so that must be enabled before on the destination. So yeah, for in-place restores, it must be a site with the same name, and otherwise you need to create it with the same name. So that is for the projects. Then an important one for deprecation. In June this year, some of the agents really will be deprecated. So that is something to keep in mind, because we know that some customers are still using older agents, for example, the version 1 agents, version 1 indexing agents for Office 365 backups, and they will go out of support on June 30th this year. And that is for those agents you see on the top here. So Domino Mailbox Archiver, some older Exchange Classic and public folder archiver. OneDrive Classic, that means the V1 indexing of OneDrive, that will go out of support. Notes, Document Agent, Exchange, the same for SharePoint V1 indexing, the Compliance Archive for Exchange, and G Suite. There are, for some of those, alternative solutions, but unfortunately for some ones, you really need to switch minds. For example, for the Domino Mailbox Archiver and Notes Document Agent, there will be no replacement agent anymore. So the only way to backup notes is then using the Notes database agent to do database backups. For Exchange Mailbox, the older agents are being replaced by the V2 indexing agent. Same for OneDrive, same for SharePoint. And for G Suite, there is a new version V2 on the roadmap. There's no ETA yet when that will come, but Commvault says it's on the roadmap, and yeah, it should come in the future. So if you use one of those older agents, please start thinking about a migration path to the newer agents to be on the supported roadmap. This is what we have discussed. Nothing else here. Some changes in the view, important callouts. The Office 365 overview dashboard is revamped. So it gives you a very clear overview of the Office 365 backups and status, if they're within the SLA, the amount of data, etc. Also, the backup health is now in a separate dashboard for Exchange. So there are different tabs here, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. So it really gives you a very good overview what the status is of your Office 365 backups. Recovery points has been moved. Previously, that was on the general dashboard. You directly could see the calendar with the Create Recovery Point option. That now has been moved beneath the Monitoring tab of the dashboard, which I just actually showed you. It's not here. If you dive into, for example, Exchange Online here, then you will see those tabs with overview, mailbox, content, and then beneath the monitoring tab, there you now have the option to create recovery points. Normally, recovery points, because there's a bit of misunderstanding there, shouldn't be required, because if you do a normal browser restore, you can just restore to a point in time. The recovery point really creates a new index of that specific time which you define for a certain mailbox. So it will really put that mailbox as the state was at that time which you create that recovery point for. So normally that the recovery point is really in sort of disaster recovery scenarios where you should need that. And there's a new reports tab available, which gives you a very nice overview of your backup history of your Office 365 backups. Then I said a quick bullet point summary of all the other updates in this future release. You will get this presentation from our other departments, so you can go through it later yourself. And if you have any additional questions, of course, you can always contact us. Some disaster recovery updates for GCP and Azure Stack. I know that some of our customers have a disaster recovery solution at our end. For that, there is an improvement that you now can select multiple access nodes at the DR site for orchestrating recovery, which should drastically speed up the restore processes on a DR site in case a disaster strikes. Some VMware and Nutanix updates. You can see that VMware vSphere 8.0 is supported with this future release, and some other new versions here. For Azure, some basic updates, and as well as for AWS. Some big data cloud apps and file system updates. Storage IntelliSnap and NAS. So Azure NetApp Files, NAS client is now supported. Within Command Center, there's now some IntelliSnap enhancements. You see that IntelliSnap is more and more coming to the Command Center. Previously, you only had that option in the Java console. So also here you can see that Commvault is more and more focusing on the Command Center. Containers, so for example, the Kubernetes, there's some updates. One of them is the security update. The container image, which Commvault deploys automatically when you do, for example, Kubernetes backups, is now based on the Oracle Enterprise Linux 9. Previously, that was CentOS, but that is end of life. So therefore, the images used for that are now upgraded to another operating system. Cloud and object storage support. There's now ad hoc, so that means a direct manual backup support for object storage. Some databases update, multi-tenant database for SAP and Oracle, and other stuff. You can see it's quite a big list of changes in this future release. Some hyperscale updates. There's a new reference architecture, which can be found in the books online. If you need some help there, please contact your account manager. We can help you with that. Security update also for hyperscale. And then last but not least, the slide is some research material. Like I said, the presentation will be sent to you, all of you, and some links with the newsletter, new features, changes, and also the changes in the UI of Commvault with this new future release. That was the presentation, and we have a couple of minutes left. So, Patrick, I'm not sure, is there anything on the chat which we can quickly discuss already?
There was one question of the threat analysis, if that works for file system only or also for VSA, and I already answered that it's for now, it's only Windows and Linux machines.
Yep.
And that's it for now.
Okay. Then I want to thank you all for joining and listening. If there's any questions related to this presentation or to this future release, you can contact our technical team or your account manager. We will be glad to help you or to discuss things with you. If you have any additional questions, we can set up different sessions to deep dive a little bit more into different topics. So please let us know if you have any questions or need any help. Thank you very much. And then I will close the presentation for today. Thank you very much.